If money were really what you want, then why do billionaires keep waking up at 5 a.m.? If wealth were the answer to everything, why do so many millionaires fall into deep depression shortly after achieving everything they ever wanted? The truth is that money is just a piece of paper, a number on a screen. By itself, it is worthless. So why do people spend their entire lives chasing it? What is really behind this obsession? To understand this illusion, we need to go back in time. There was a time when money did not exist. Societies operated through direct exchange, cattle for grain, fish for tools. Until one day, someone realized that it was easier to represent value with something that could be stored and transported without spoiling. First came gold, then coins, then paper bills. But then something curious happened. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that money was just an intermediary. We started treating it as the goal itself. The psychologist Daniel Kahneman, winner of the Nobel Prize in Economics, conducted an interesting experiment. He discovered that, above a certain level of income, happiness does not increase proportionally with money. In other words, a person who earns 10 times more than another is not 10 times happier. This means that, at some point, money stops being a driver of well-being and becomes an illusion of control. You think you want more money, but in reality, you want what it represents. And that's where the problem comes in. Most people don't know what they're really looking for. For some, money means security. The idea that if you have a good amount of money saved, nothing bad can happen. But is that true? If it were, then why do millionaires still suffer from anxiety attacks and insecurity? For others, money represents status. But if status were the key to satisfaction, why do so many successful celebrities feel an existential void even at the height of their fame? The thing is, when you make money the end instead of the means, you enter an endless race. It's never enough. And here's a brutal contradiction. The richest people in the world keep working, even when they have enough money to never lift a finger again. Jeff Bezos could spend the rest of his life on a private beach, but he's still building empires. Elon Musk could retire and live among yachts and paradise islands, but he's obsessed with colonizing Mars. This proves that money alone has never been the real motivation. So what is it? The answer is simple and frightening. Human beings don't seek money. They seek excitement. You want money because you believe it will bring you security, freedom, power, respect, happiness. But what if I told you that all of this can be achieved without necessarily becoming a millionaire? What if the real trap is the idea that only after having a lot of money can you live the life you want? If that were the case, then a CEO of $1 billion company should be infinitely happier than a fisherman who lives by the sea with no great ambitions. But the philosopher Epicurus had a different view. For him, true happiness came from the absence of disturbances, something that all the money in the world cannot buy. He argued that what really makes us feel good are simple pleasures, quality time, good conversations, freedom over our own lives. So why has society convinced us that only by becoming millionaires can we live like this? The problem lies in the way we are programmed. From an early age, we learn that money is synonymous with success, that accumulating wealth is the ultimate proof that you have succeeded in life. But what if this concept of success is a trap? Writer Morgan Housel, author of The Psychology of Money, explains that most people don't really want to be rich. They just want to spend money so that others perceive them as rich. In other words, we don't seek wealth, we seek validation. And this keeps us stuck in a never-ending race. Now think about it. If money has no value in itself, and if it's not what we really seek, then why do we spend our entire lives trying to accumulate it? Are we playing a game whose ultimate prize was never what we really wanted? Imagine you're running on a treadmill. With each step you take, your speed increases. At first, it seems easy. You feel like you're going fast, that you're making progress, but then you suddenly realize that no matter how hard you run, you're never going anywhere. This is the money race, a game that seems to have a final destination, but in reality has no finish line. Most people spend their entire lives believing that if they just earned a little more, everything would be fine. When I earn $10,000 a month, my life will be solved. They get there and realize that it's not enough. Now the goal becomes $50,000, then $100,000, then $1 million. The problem isn't the money. The problem is the scarcity mindset that has been programmed into us from an early age. We always believe that we don't have enough. Now look at this paradox. If wealth were the answer to happiness, then why are so many people who have reached the top still unhappy? Why do millionaires fall into depression? Why do successful celebrities have emotional breakdowns? Anthony Bourdain, one of the world's highest-paid chefs and entertainers, committed suicide at the height of his career. Avicii, a DJ who made his fortune at a young age, gave up on life at 28. If money were enough, these stories wouldn't exist. Morgan Housel, in The Psychology of Money, explains that most people who seek wealth aren't interested in money itself. They want status, respect, security. But ironically, the more money they accumulate, the more insecure they become. They realize they now have something to lose. They discover that there is always someone with more. They get into a cycle of needing to prove themselves all the time, and this becomes an unbearable burden. Here's a brutal irony. Many of the world's richest people still live as if they were poor, not because they like simplicity, but because they never truly feel rich. Investor Warren Buffett, one of the richest men on the planet, has lived in the same modest home since 1958. For him, wealth has never been about spending, but about freedom. But most people don't understand this. They get into the money game believing it will solve their problems, but all they do is create new problems. And the question no one asks is, what's your number? In other words, what's the amount that would make you feel like you already have enough? If you don't know that answer, then you're already stuck in the endless race. Because without a clear number, the search never ends. If you think your happiness always lies in the next million, the next car, the next house, then you'll never stop running. The real danger of this race isn't just physical and emotional exhaustion. It's the invisible cost it exacts. People sacrifice health, relationships, time, and even purpose in life in exchange for more money. But when they finally get there, they realize that what they lost along the way was precisely what made life worthwhile. Imagine that tomorrow you wake up and discover that you have won $100 million. You no longer need to work. You can buy whatever you want. Houses, cars, trips, endless luxury. Now tell me, what will you do the next day? The answer to this question is more revealing than it seems. Because if you don't know exactly what you would do, then maybe money was never what you were really looking for. The problem is that most people believe they want money, but in reality, they want what money promises to bring: freedom, security, power, validation. But there is one detail. All of this can be achieved without you having to be a millionaire. And this is an uncomfortable truth because it destroys the myth that wealth is the only solution to a full life. Let's put this to the test. When you think of being rich, what image comes to mind? Probably a lifestyle where you no longer have to worry. But what exactly does it mean to have no worries? Not having to wake up early, not having to answer to a boss, not having to fear bills at the end of the month. So your quest is not for money, but for a sense of control over your own life. But does that require an infinite bank balance or just smarter financial choices? Epicurus, one of the most influential philosophers of ancient Greece, advocated a radical idea for his time: that true happiness was not to be found in the accumulation of wealth, but in simplicity. He argued that the most valuable pleasure was not to show off, but to live without disturbances. And this creates an interesting contrast. Today, many seek wealth to buy freedom, but along the way they become slaves to their own quest. They work non-stop. They go into debt to maintain a lifestyle they cannot afford. They sell time for money without realizing that money never buys time back. Now think about it. Do you really want wealth, or do you want quality of life? Do you want millions in your bank account, or just autonomy to decide what to do with your day? If it's the latter, perhaps what you need is not a fortune, but a plan. Maybe your freedom is not $1 million away, but just a few smart financial choices away. The big problem with modern society is that we sell the illusion that there is only one path to success: work hard, get rich, and only then start living. But what if it was the other way around? What if the secret is to first understand what makes your life worthwhile, and only then build a healthy relationship with money? Most people discover this too late. If you've made it this far, you've already understood that money, in and of itself, means nothing. That the real quest is not for numbers, but for what they represent. But now comes the most important question. How can we transform this awareness into a real strategy? How can we break out of the endless race and use money as a tool for the life you want? The first thing you need to understand is that there is a number that defines your freedom. Some call it the financial independence number. Others call it FIRE. Financial independence, retire early. But the idea is simple. Instead of chasing more money indefinitely, figure out exactly how much you need to live the life you want. This number is different for everyone. For some, it means $10 million in the bank. For others, it just means an income that covers your expenses without having to sell time for money. But without this clear number, you'll always be stuck in the game of scarcity, thinking that you never have enough. Here's the fatal error. Many people believe that earning more money automatically improves their lives. But without a strategy, extra income turns into more expenses, more responsibilities, more commitments. It's called the lifestyle trap. You earn more, then spend more, and continue in the same race as before. The secret is not just to earn more, but to learn how to save more and invest better. And here comes a point that few understand. The true power of money is not in what it buys, but in what it prevents. Well-managed money gives you choices. It protects you from jobs you hate. It allows you to say no to situations that compromise your values. It gives you time to dedicate yourself to what really matters. But to do this, you need to stop thinking of money as an end and start using it as a strategic means. Morgan Housel explains that invisible wealth is much more powerful than visible ostentation. Truly rich people, financially and emotionally, are not those who spend without limits, but those who master the game of time and priorities. While some people are always trying to make more money, true money masters build systems where their money works for them. This means understanding investments, creating passive income streams, and avoiding unnecessary debt. If you've made it this far, you've already realized that the pursuit of money can be a trap, but it can also be a tool. The problem was never money. The problem was the way you were taught to see it. Society sells the idea that wealth is the end, when in fact it should only be the means. The question is, means to what? Most people never stop to answer this. They spend their entire lives chasing an arbitrary number, without even knowing if that number will really bring them what they want. They live under the illusion that, when I have X, I'll be happy. But happiness always seems to be one step ahead. And that's the game that never ends. So I ask you, what do you really want? Security, time, power, freedom, respect? What if I told you that many of these desires can be achieved without having to enter the endless race of accumulation? If you keep chasing money without understanding what you really want, you'll never be truly rich. Because wealth is not about how much you earn, but about how much control you have over your life.